So, um, there was this movie I was watching, and it was about this guy and this um these these two people that been together, but they didn't remember until later on. They just felt, and they felt in they felt it in their spirit that something wasn't right. So that's basically a summary. But these two people were using this device. It's kind of like a Alexa or like um a Google, something like that. What else is there? Alexa, Google, um AI assistant. It's something like an AI assistant. So they had they had these devices and they was following every command. So every time they went out on like a date or something, like it would tell them what date they would have, what person, and it actually set up their location. So they would go and they would spend this amount of time with this person. Even if it's up to 365 days, 5 years, and so on. So they went with these people and they spent that time with those people, those specific people at this location at like it was more of a cabin setting. So they spent that time with that person and they got to know that person. It was more of just trying to find the right soulmate. Eventually, it did come down to where um their soulmates would be found later on. Like it'd tell them, I have found your soulmate after a certain amount of time. It was so many things I was thinking, like, okay, so what if this person gets pregnant? What if they get pregnant with these people? But I don't know. I guess it's all about how it's set up. Um, so that happened, and then um, I guess the two people that actually really liked each other, they really liked each other. Like you can just tell whenever they seen each other or came in contact with each other, it's like everything just, was about them. Like everybody, disappeared and they just was themselves. They can be themselves. And that's how that was. Um, they can be themselves. And eventually when they did get back together, because they did spend a little bit of time together, but they didn't spend all their time. Well, they only had a short amount of time. So within, the next date, they were dating two other people. And with these other people, they had like, I think he had 365 days, and the other girl, she had like 6 months with this dude. So all that time they spent without each other, they just they knew exactly what they wanted. They didn't want anything else from these other companions. So eventually that had a reaction within itself. So they got together. They actually got another date together, and they got another date together, and they got to spend time together. And um this time was for actually 5 years. But they agreed we're not going to check the device. We're not going to check the time. They shook on it before, at the time of the meetup. So they shook on it. We're not going to look at the time. So they spent time to get, well, they got their cabin, they got their location, and they got settled in. So she was more of, they, you can tell they really actually cared about each other. Like maybe they was in love. It never really came out that they were in love, but they cared a lot about each other. And she eventually, it's the thing, this device had his mind so much, like he couldn't function the whole time. He just couldn't function because his mind was set on this device, the time. So it's like everything that they did together, he wasn't fully there. He couldn't really, gain the full experience of what it meant to be with her. He couldn't focus on the moment. She could, maybe because she was more, adaptable to it. She she just got, she got over it. She had to live with it and she accepted it more than he did. But it seemed like he didn't accept it because now he wanted more out of it, you know. So eventually he did go ahead and break his promise. And one night he got up and he checked his device. His device was, he checked it and it said 5 years. So he was happy, he was good. He like, I'm about to be with this girl for 5 years. This is amazing. It's like it was a relief, a sense of relief, until within moments later, this device started changing the time. It started switching up the time. Um, Next thing you know, it was 3 years. Like, that's not so bad. And then it went down to 1 year. And then it went down to 5 months. It went down to 3 months. 3 months. It went down to 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 1 week, 5 days, 3 days, 12 hours, and then it stopped. And I think it was less than 12 hours. And she said the device functioning was only the decision was based off of one-sided. So the fact that it was one-sided was because the fact that, because this, um, because he went ahead and he broke his shake, he shook on it, he broke his shake, and he went ahead and he went and got seen a time without her knowing. So it was more of a one-sided, you know, decision. It was calculated off of one side of the decision being one-sided. He's seen it before she's seen it. So if they would have tapped it at the same time, then it would have said 5 years and it would have stayed at 5 years. But the fact that he went ahead and did it without her, then it broke the system, kind of broke the time. Because after that, even after that, his device wasn't acting right. So he kind of broke his device. So um oh, so eventually that glue done freaking dried up. um I was still wet though. All right, so eventually they did, go against all odds, and they figured out, the system couldn't really touch them, and they could do whatever they wanted to do. They could be free to make their own decisions, and eventually they went ahead and um broke away from the system, and they got together, like more of a in another dimension or something. So they came. I don't know if they came back to reality, but they still had these technology. They still had the thing telling them who to be with, but it wasn't on this device anymore. It was on their phones. So that's how they met up again the second time. Um, That's the thing. It's like, you know, what's the point? But because the it's still the device. It's like they didn't run away from it, but it just never ended because now y'all met up again and y'all are still holding this device, and it's not like I said, it wasn't the mind type, it wasn't that device. It was more of a cell phone now that had an app that looked like the device. So I don't know. It's like when you when you feel mentally obligated, when you feel obligated to something, it steals all time. It steals you from the moment, from enjoying all that time you have with somebody because your mind is not there. Your mind is on something else. And it kind of reminded me of that song of, I'm gonna play that song in a minute. But yeah, I'm gonna play that song in a minute. But yeah, it takes you away from the moment and experiencing the moment. You're being trapped. Your mind is so attached to something else that you just can't, you know, you can't be here. So, I'm trying to see because I know this song that kind of relates to what I'm talking about. Um, and this food is gonna dry up again if I don't hurry up. Are you cold? Cold your pants. This was like my favorite song by her when I first started listening to it.